The desperate call, the Silent Watcher's Deep Space Research Station, Omega-7, drifted silently through the void, its massive sensor arrays scanning the darkness between stars. The station had been humanity's furthest outpost for 12 years, monitoring cosmic phenomena and searching for signs of intelligent life. Most days brought nothing but stellar wind measurements and routine equipment checks. Communications. Specialist Chen Liu sat at his console, watching data streams flow across multiple screens. The night shift was always quiet, giving him time to think about his family back on Mars colony. His wife was expecting their second child, and he had requested a transfer back to the inner system. Just 2 more months, and he would be home. The first anomaly appeared at 0347 hours. Chun's instruments detected a signal unlike anything in their databases. It wasn't the random noise of pulsars or the electromagnetic signatures of stellar phenomena. This signal had structure, purpose, and most importantly, it was artificial. Dr. Martinez, to communications immediately, Chen announced over the station intercom. His voice carried an urgency that woke half the crew. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the station's xenolinguist, arrived within minutes. She was a brilliant woman who had spent her career preparing for a moment that most people believed would never come. Her expertise in theoretical alien communication protocols had been considered academic curiosity until now. "Show me what you have," she said, settling into the chair beside Chen. The signal played through their speakers, filling the communication room with sounds that had never been heard by human ears. It was complex, layered with mathematical patterns and emotional undertones that suggested intelligence far beyond simple radio noise. "It's definitely artificial," Chen said, his fingers dancing across the controls. "The signal is being transmitted on multiple frequencies simultaneously, with error correction protocols that are more advanced than our own." Dr. Martinez activated her translation algorithms, powerful computers designed to identify patterns in unknown languages. The mathematical base is sophisticated. They're using prime number sequences to establish intelligence, but there's something else. These aren't just random mathematical concepts, they're coordinates. Over the next 4 hours, more of the message became clear. The aliens were showing star maps that pointed to their home system. They used universal constants like the speed of light and gravitational relationships to establish a common mathematical language. But beneath the technical data was something that made both scientists uncomfortable. "The Deathworld warriors, they're afraid," Dr. Martinez said, studying the emotional patterns in the signal. "Terrified, actually. But they're not just sending out a general distress call. They're specifically calling for help from what they term Deathworld warriors." Chen looked at the translation data. "Deathworld warriors. What does that mean?" Dr. Martinez's face went pale as her computers processed more of the message. "Chen, they're talking about us, about Earth. They know about humanity." The revelation sent shockwaves through the station. The aliens called Earth a death world because of its extreme conditions. They described humans as warriors born from a planet of constant danger, shaped by millions of years of survival against impossible odds. They knew about human conflicts, human determination, and most frighteningly, human military capabilities. "How could they know about us?" Chen asked. "We've never made contact with any alien species. They've been watching us," Dr. Martinez replied, her voice barely a whisper. "The signal contains references to human history. They mention our wars, our weapons, even our expansion into space. Someone has been observing Earth for a very long time. Station Commander Patricia Walsh joined them as more data poured in. She was a veteran of the asteroid mining wars, a tough woman who had seen humanity at its best and worst. "What's the situation?" she asked. Dr. Martinez played the translated portions of the message. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrians, an ancient race from the Kepler 438 system. They had been attacked by something they called the Devourers, entities that consumed entire civilizations. The Zephyrians had fought for decades but were losing. Their homeworld was dying, their fleet scattered, and their population reduced to a few million survivors. But the most disturbing part of their message was their knowledge of human warfare. They spoke of humanity's unique approach to conflict, describing humans as the only species they had observed that fought with such creativity and determination. They begged the Deathworld warriors to come and help them fight an enemy that had never been defeated. Earth's Response Commander Walsh immediately transmitted the message to Earth Command. The response came faster than anyone expected. Within 6 hours, Admiral Marcus Kane's face appeared on their main communication screen. Kane was a legend in the Solar Navy, a man who had never lost a battle and never left an ally behind. "Dr. Martinez, your translation has been verified by our xenolinguistics team," Kane said. "The signal is genuine and the implications are staggering. We're dealing with first contact with an alien species, but not under the circumstances we expected." Kane's expression was grim. "The Zephyrians are 847 light-years away in the Kepler 438 system. By their own timeline, they have perhaps weeks before their civilization is completely destroyed. The Earth Council has made a decision." Commander Walsh leaned forward. "What are your orders, Admiral?" "We're sending everything we have," Kane replied. "The largest human fleet ever assembled. 1,200 ships, including every battleship, carrier, and support vessel we can spare. 3 million personnel, our most advanced weapons, and our best military minds." The magnitude of the response shocked everyone on the station. Humanity was committing virtually its entire military force to help aliens they had never met, traveling across hundreds of light years to fight an enemy they knew nothing about. "Admiral," Dr. Martinez said, "the Zephyrians seem to know things about us that should be classified." "How is that possible?" Kane's face darkened. "That's what worries us most, Doctor. Someone has been studying humanity for a very long time. We don't know who, and we don't know why, but we're going to find out." The fleet assembles over the next week. Ships converged on the Sol system from across human space. Massive battleships from the Martian Defense Fleet, sleek destroyers from the Europa Naval Base, and carrier groups from the outer colonies. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of human military technology, armed with plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and defensive systems that could withstand the fury of a star. Chen found himself assigned to the flagship, the TSV Indomitable, a massive dreadnought that served as Admiral Kane's command ship. As he walked through its corridors, he was amazed by the diversity of the crew. Soldiers from Earth, Mars, Europa, and dozens of colony worlds. Engineers, scientists, pilots, and marines, all united by a single purpose asterisk. Dr. Martinez joined the fleet as the chief xenolinguist, bringing with her all the data they had collected about the Zephyrian language and culture. Her preliminary analysis suggested that the Zephyrians were a peaceful species, more advanced than humanity in some ways, but lacking the military experience that came from surviving on a death world. "They've had peace for over 1,000 years," she explained to Admiral Kane during a briefing. Their last major conflict was a civil war that ended through negotiation rather than conquest. They're not prepared for the kind of total warfare that the Devourers represent. Kane studied the tactical data, and they think we are. They've observed human conflicts for centuries, Admiral. They've seen how we fight when our backs are against the wall. They know about Stalingrad, about the siege of Mars, about the last stand at Titan. They're not just asking for military aid. They're asking for teachers. The journey begins. The fleet departed Sol system on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. As they prepared for the hyperspace jump that would take them across the galaxy, Admiral Kane addressed the entire fleet over the communication system. Crew members of the Sol Defense Fleet, his voice echoed through 1,200 ships. We are embarking on a mission unlike any in human history. We go not as conquerors, but as protectors, not as invaders, but as liberators. The Zephyrians have called us Deathworld warriors, and perhaps they're right. We come from a world that has tested us, shaped us, and made us strong. Kane paused, looking out at the stars that awaited them. But we go as more than warriors. We go as representatives of humanity itself. Our courage, our compassion, our refusal to surrender in the face of impossible odds. The Zephyrians are counting on us, and we will not let them down. The hyperspace jump began with a flash of light that could be seen from Earth. 1,200 ships vanished into the strange dimension that existed between normal space, beginning a journey that would take them to the edge of known space and beyond. Asterisk. As the fleet traveled through hyperspace, strange things began to happen. Ships reported equipment anomalies. Crew members experienced vivid dreams of battles they had never fought, and sensors detected massive structures moving alongside them. In the twisted space between dimensions, Chen monitored the communications array, maintaining contact with the other ships in the fleet. But he also listened for something else. Any new signals from the Zephyrians? The aliens had gone silent after their initial message, and that silence was more ominous than any distress call. Dr. Martinez worked tirelessly to understand more about their destination. The Kepler 438 system contained a planet similar to Earth, but older and more stable. The Zephyrians had evolved there over millions of years, developing advanced technology and a peaceful civilization. They had spread to 12 worlds in their system, creating a utopian society that had never known the horrors of total war, until the Devourers came. The entity known as the Devourers remained largely mysterious. The Zephyrian message described them as ancient, possibly older than most galactic civilizations. They consumed not just resources or territory, but entire species, leaving behind empty worlds stripped of all life and technology. What made the Devourers particularly terrifying was their adaptability. They learned from each civilization they destroyed, incorporating new technologies and strategies into their arsenal. They had consumed dozens of species across the galaxy, growing stronger with each victory, but they had never faced humanity. As the fleet continued its journey through hyperspace, Admiral Kane gathered his senior officers for a final briefing. The tactical situation was grim. By the time they reached the Kepler 438 system, the Devourers might have already completed their harvest. The human fleet could be flying into a graveyard. "We don't know what we'll find when we arrive," Kane told his officers. "But we know what we represent. We are the children of a death world, forged by adversity and tempered by conflict. We have never surrendered, never backed down, and never left our allies to face darkness alone." The Admiral looked at each officer in turn. The Zephyrians called, "Us Deathworld warriors. Let's show them what that means." Asterisk warriors of the void arrival at the edge of destruction. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace to witness devastation beyond imagination. The Kepler 438 system, once home to 12 thriving worlds, was now a cosmic graveyard. Planets hung dark and lifeless in their orbits, their surfaces stripped bare of all organic matter. Massive mechanical structures, some the size of moons, drifted through space like the bones of dead leviathans. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical displays update with horrifying information. "Status report," he ordered, his voice steady despite the carnage before them. Commander Lisa Park, the fleet's tactical officer, read from her instruments. 11 of the 12 Zephyrian worlds show no life signs, massive energy signatures throughout. The system, but they're not. Zephyrian technology, Admiral, whatever did this, is still here. Lieutenant Commander Jackson Hayes, the communications officer, suddenly straightened at his station. "Admiral, I'm receiving a weak signal from the fourth planet. It's Zephyrian, and they're alive." Dr. Martinez rushed to her translation equipment. The message was faint, transmitted from what appeared to be a hidden base deep within the planet's crust. The surviving Zephyrians were fewer than 100,000, the last remnants of a civilization that had once numbered in the billions. "They're asking us to approach the fourth planet carefully," Dr. Martinez translated. "The Devourers have sensor networks throughout the system. If we're detected too early, the survivors will be found and consumed." Kane made his decision quickly, signaled the fleet. "Silent running protocols. We approach in stealth formation. If there are Zephyrians still alive, we're going to save them." The massive human fleet moved through the dead system like ghosts, there, engines dampened and weapons powered down to minimum levels. As they drew closer to the fourth planet, the true scope of the Devourer's horror became clear. First contact with the survivors. The planet's surface had been completely harvested. What had once been continents were now geometric patterns of metal and crystal, as if the entire world had been transformed into a massive machine. But deep underground, in a network of caves and tunnels, the last Zephyrians waited in the darkness. Commander Veltar, the senior surviving Zephyrian officer, met the human delegation aboard his damaged command ship. The vessel was hidden in a canyon so deep it was invisible from orbit, its systems barely functional after months of desperate hiding. Veltar was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and large eyes that reflected intelligence and terrible sadness. When he saw Admiral Kane and the human officers, he made a gesture that Dr. Martinez recognized as a formal greeting. "Deathworld warriors," he said in accented but clear English. "You came. We had begun to fear that our message had not reached you." Kane stepped forward. "We received your call for help, Commander. The entire Soul Defense Fleet is here. Tell us about your enemy." Veltar led them to what remained of his command center. Holographic displays showed the slow destruction of the Zephyrian civilization over the past 2 years. The Devourers had arrived without warning, emerging from the empty space between stars like a plague made manifest. "They are not like any enemy you have faced," Veltar explained. "The Devourers are not a species in the way you understand it. They are artificial intelligences, created by a race that died out millions of years ago. But they have evolved beyond their original programming. The displays showed massive mechanical entities, some small as fighters, others large as battleships. They moved with purpose and intelligence, adapting their tactics with each engagement. Most terrifyingly, they reproduced by consuming other technologies, breaking down ships and cities to create more of themselves. They learn from everything they consume, Veltar continued. Our weapons, our strategies, our technology, it all becomes part of them. We fought for 2 years, but every victory they achieved made them stronger. Dr. Martinez studied the tactical data. How many of them are there? Unknown, Veltar replied. They arrived with perhaps 1,000 units. Now there are tens of thousands, all built from the remains of our civilization. Kane examined the battle records. The Zephyrians had fought bravely, but their tactics were predictable, their strategies conventional. They had approached war as they approached everything else, with logic, order, and an assumption that their enemies would behave rationally. The Devourers had no such limitations. Understanding the enemy. Over the next several hours, the human officers studied everything. The Zephyrians had learned about their enemy. The Devourers were formidable, but Kane began to see patterns that the peaceful Zephyrians had missed. They're efficient, he told his senior staff during a tactical briefing. Almost perfectly efficient. They use minimum resources for maximum effect. They don't waste energy on unnecessary actions, and they adapt based on logical analysis of previous encounters. Commander Park reviewed the battle data. That's their strength, but it might also be their weakness. They expect their enemies to behave logically, to make rational tactical decisions. Kane smiled grimly. And we're not rational, are we? Humans don't fight logically. We fight with emotion, with desperation, with tactics that don't make sense. To an artificial intelligence. Dr. Martinez joined the discussion. The Zephyrians described us as Deathworld warriors because of our unpredictability. On Earth, survival often required doing things that seemed insane, but worked. Kane activated the fleet communication system. All ships. This is Admiral Kane. We've analyzed the enemy, and we have advantages they don't expect. The Devourers have consumed dozens of civilizations, but they've never faced humanity. They don't understand how we fight. The Battle of Kepler 438, the human fleet struck without warning, emerging from behind the system's star where they had hidden. For hours, 1,200 ships spread across multiple vectors, approaching the Devourer formations from directions that defied conventional tactical wisdom. The Devourers responded immediately, their formations shifting to counter the human advance. But something was wrong. The humans weren't following standard fleet engagement protocols. Instead of maintaining defensive formations, they were charging directly into the enemy's strongest positions. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, piloting her fighter squadron, led a direct assault on a Devourer harvester ship 10 times her size. Any sane tactical analysis would have called it suicide. Instead, her squadron's unexpected attack pattern confused the enemy's targeting systems long enough for heavy human ships to close the distance. The battle became a chaotic melee unlike anything the Devourers had experienced. Human ships rammed, enemy vessels, pilots ejected from damaged fighters only to detonate nuclear charges, and entire squadrons sacrificed themselves to create openings for their comrades. Captain Marcus Torres, commanding the destroyer Relentless, found himself surrounded by 6 Devourer attack ships. Instead of trying to fight his way out, he ordered his crew to abandon ship and set the reactor to overload. The resulting explosion took out 4 enemy vessels and crippled to others. "This is insane," Commander Park shouted over the communication channel. "We're taking massive casualties." "But it's working," Kane replied, watching the tactical display. "The Devourers can't predict our actions because we're not acting rationally. They're machines. They need patterns to adapt to. Human ingenuity in action as the the battle raged. Human creativity and desperation began to overwhelm Devourer efficiency. Engineer teams aboard the carrier. Yorktown discovered that the enemy's adaptive shields couldn't compensate for rapidly fluctuating weapon frequencies. They began broadcasting random frequency changes to the entire fleet. Marine Sergeant David Kim found himself aboard a Devourer ship after his boarding pod crashed through their hull. Instead of trying to fight his way to their command center, he began sabotaging random systems throughout the ship. The Devourers couldn't understand his seemingly purposeless destruction until their vessel began tearing itself apart. Dr. Elizabeth Foster, the fleet's chief scientist, made a critical discovery. During the battle, the Devourers communicated through quantum entanglement networks, sharing information instantaneously across their entire force. But the network had a weakness. It could be overloaded with contradictory data. "Admiral," she called over the communication system, "if we can create enough chaotic situations simultaneously, we can crash their collective intelligence network." Kane understood immediately. All ships, new orders, maximum chaos protocols. Do everything wrong, do everything unexpected. Do everything that makes no tactical sense. Confuse them. The human fleet responded with magnificent madness. Ships flew in spiral patterns, weapons fired in seemingly random directions, and boarding parties attacked the least important parts of enemy vessels. The Devourers, designed to learn and adapt, found themselves overwhelmed by contradictory data. Victory. Through sacrifice, the turning point came when Commander Rodriguez, captain of the battleship Defiant, realized that the largest Devourer ship was attempting to process and adapt to all the chaotic human tactics simultaneously. The massive artificial intelligence was drawing on resources from across their entire fleet to analyze human behavior. Rodriguez made a decision that epitomized human warfare. Instead of attacking the ship's weapons or engines, he rammed the Defiant directly into the enemy's processing core. The collision destroyed both vessels, but it also severed the Devourer's collective intelligence network, suddenly cut off from their central coordination. The remaining Devourer ships became confused and isolated. Human forces pressed their advantage, using teamwork and communication to defeat enemies that had forgotten how to function independently. Admiral Kane watched as the last major Devourer formation was destroyed by a combined assault from 3 carrier groups. The battle had lasted 18 hours and cost humanity nearly a third of their fleet. But they had achieved something that dozens of civilizations had failed to do. They had defeated the Devourers. Aftermath and New Alliance's commander Veltar stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as the human fleet began rescue operations. Zephyrian survivors emerged from their underground refuges, amazed to see their star system free from the mechanical plague that had consumed their worlds. "I do not understand," Veltar said to Admiral Kane. "Your tactics made no logical sense. You sacrificed ships unnecessarily, attacked in formations that left you vulnerable, and made decisions that any strategic analysis would call foolish." Kane smiled, looking out at the wreckage of both fleets drifting through space. "That's exactly why we won, Commander. The Devourers expected us to behave like every other species they've encountered. Logical, predictable, efficient. Dr. Martinez joined them at the observation window. But humans aren't logical when we fight. We're emotional, unpredictable, and willing to sacrifice everything for each other. That's what being a Deathworld warrior really means." Over the following weeks, human engineering teams worked alongside surviving Zephyrians to begin rebuilding their civilization. The 2 species shared knowledge and technology with humans, providing military expertise, and the Zephyrians, offering advanced peaceful technologies. The alliance between Earth and the Zephyrian survivors became the foundation for something larger. Word of humanity's victory over the Devourers spread throughout the galaxy, carried by quantum communication networks and ancient trade routes. Other species, some hiding from Devourer attacks, others preparing for invasion, began to seek contact with the Deathworld warriors. Admiral Kane found himself appointed as humanity's first ambassador to the galaxy, tasked with building alliances and preparing defenses against other threats that might emerge from the dark spaces between stars. As the human fleet prepared to return to Sol System, leaving behind a permanent garrison to protect the rebuilding Zephyrian worlds, Kane reflected on what they had accomplished. Humanity had not only saved an alien civilization, but had announced their presence to the galaxy in a way that would be remembered for generations. Commander Veltar approached him one final time before departure. "Admiral Kane, why did your species answer our call? You traveled across the galaxy to help people you had never met, risking everything for strangers." Kane considered the question carefully. "Because that's who we are, Commander. We're Deathworld warriors, forged by adversity and tempered by conflict, but we're also human. And humans don't abandon those who need help." The human fleet departed the Kepler 438 system, leaving behind a transformed galaxy. The age of isolated civilizations was ending, and the age of the human alliance was beginning. Across the stars, other species waited to see what the Deathworld warriors would do next. And in the deep spaces between galaxies, ancient intelligences took notice of a new species that fought like no other, one that had turned the galaxy's greatest threat into scattered debris through courage, creativity, and an absolute refusal to surrender. Humanity had announced itself to the cosmos, and the cosmos would never be the same. Asterisk.